Today, we're brewing a beer with ultimate versatility and uncovering what makes it so special. Red Ale, a beer that's anything but boring. So stay tuned to discover the secrets behind this incredible beer. Welcome back, craft beer explorers, to the channel, and welcome to another homebrew day. As you can see here, I've got the ingredients ready to make a red ale. So what makes red ale so versatile? Well, it's where the red malt sits in the malty spectrum. So the malts used to make red beer just hit that sweet spot where you're able to make those rich malty beers or vibrant hoppy ones equally with ease. So you might be thinking, but I can have hoppy dark beers and pale beers and malty dark beers and pale beers. So yes, that is true. But with pale beers, the malty flavors of those is often subtle. And with dark beers, you can easily overwhelm any hoppy character with the dark malts. And I personally find that when you add hops to dark beers, or you make a dark beer hoppy, the interaction between the hops and the dark malts just change the flavor of those hops than what you would normally expect from, say, paler beers. And so there's a little bit more consideration that needs to go into making hoppy or malty, pale or dark beers. But with red malts, it's just a sweet spot where you can just get either quite easily, and they can both be quite enjoyable. And I think red ales have this great balance between being flavorful and malty enough, but without maybe some of the drawbacks from dark malts. So red malts are generally either kilned malts, which are like pale malts, but are kilned to a high temperature or for longer, or caramelized malts, which are essentially malts that are stewed so that the sugars inside caramelize as they are kilned, hence the caramelized name. These are often called caramelized or crystal malts. And these caramel malts can come in various levels, from lightly caramelized to really, really heavily caramelized. These malts are often used because of their rich caramelized flavors and can often add depth and color to different types of beers. So for me, the range of flavors that you can get from red malt is actually quite impressive. So you can get things like toasty, nutty, caramel, burnt caramel or burnt sugar, toffee, dark fruits, overripe dark fruits, burnt fruit, and other more subtler fruity flavors than that as well. And for me personally, I think those sweet and caramel flavors that you do get out of red malts pair really well with a lot of those flavors and aromas that you get from hops, particularly modern hops or American hops that you would typically use in a lot of IPAs. I reckon it just pairs really, really well with those types of flavors. Now, of course, red ale is a very broad term and encompasses all sorts of different beer styles, such as IPAs or bitters or Irish red ale, all the way from malty to hoppy. So I think all of these types of beers do benefit from the diversity and balance that you can get from using the red malty spectrum correctly.
If my microphone hadn't decided to have stopped working, like yeast that's gone dormant, then you would be watching me tell you the following story about one of my first encounters with red ale. Instead, you're just going to have to listen while my arms do random movements. Do you remember one of the first times you had a red ale? For me, it was at a craft beer bar with a mate. The rich malty sweetness and balanced drinkability was quite an experience. This flavorful, rich and malty beer was so easy to drink that our first pint went down fast, and we quickly and suddenly had another. Unfortunately, I don't remember what the beer was called. The bar had rotating taps, and once a keg was gone, it was gone, and it was replaced with something else. Since then, I've been on a quest to recreate that perfect pint, a rich and sweet malty beer that's easy to drink. Maybe you've had a similar experience and want to brew something like that too. I've tried a few red ales over the last couple of years, but they've usually been on the hoppy side for some reason. Probably because I've gotten distracted and made something else. But now, I've decided to brew a malty red ale. Today, we're brewing an 11-litre red ale with 5% in bottle, 4.6% in keg with an OG of 1047. So for the water chemistry, we're going for a profile that suits an amber-coloured malty beer with medium mouthfeel. I wanted to make sure the mouthfeel wasn't too heavy, as there are quite a few specialty malts, and I'm a little bit worried that this may end up being a bit maltier than heavier than I wanted. I do want some drinkability with this beer, but I also think that a bit of a heavier mouthfeel will also play well with this style, so therefore I've gone for medium. For the grain build today, I wanted to explore a spectrum of some cool red malts to experiment a bit. So, for the base, we have Golden Promise. I've not used this as a base malt before, so I wanted to give it a go. It's described as bringing a beautiful balance to beers. Then we have some Vienna malt, a kiln malt giving a fuller body than other base malts and gives a smooth mouthfeel and some gentle nutty tones. Followed by Gladfield toffee malt, low colour caramel malt that adds toffee and honey-like flavours to the beer, as well as some body and mouthfeel. Shepherd's Delight, which is an intense malty malt with bread, toast and cola flavours, and some lingering fruitiness. Apparently, when this is used with Vienna malt, it is said to give a balanced sweetness. Then I also have some biscuit malt, provides some earthy, toasted, and nutty tones to the beer, and a toasted finish. Then I have some Melanoidin malt, which enhances the malty character, body, and mouthfeel. And ending, we have Golden Naked Oats, an oat crystal malt, which adds a rich, sweet berry nut flavour and a creamy finish. As you can see, we've got quite a number of specialty malts going into this beer. Will it be too malty? Have I gone overboard? Well, we're just going to have to brew with it and find out. While it may have been wiser just to choose 1 or 2 specialty malts to see how they taste, I just couldn't help myself. Hopefully, it's not too overboard and we can taste everything, but I was a bit like a kid in a candy store and wanted to give it all a go. So I'm not sure if we're going to get that real balanced drinkability, but sometimes it's fun just to get all the malts and chuck them in. So we have a simple mash today, 65 degrees Celsius for 60 minutes, aiming for fermentability. Given the malty character, this should hopefully help balance that out a bit so that it doesn't finish too sweet. And we'll end with a mash out for 5 to 10 minutes to help the sugars drain from the grains. Pretty simple for the hops today, going for a single 60-minute bittering edition of Northern Brewer, aiming to get around 30 IBUs. Northern Brewer has a herbal, woody and peppery aroma, which should go well with this malty beer. I believe that this flavour profile will help balance the beer out without the hoppy flavours getting in the way too much of the malts which we want to have on show. Also have half a Delta Flock tablet going into the boil with 15 minutes to go and some yeast nutrient with 10 minutes to go. Beer was then chilled using the immersion wort chiller. Luckily for this beer, I think because of the cold weather, beer was able to be chilled down to the 20-degree pitching temperature without needing to put it into the fermentation chamber before pitching the yeast. After about 15 to 20 minutes of chilling, the beer was transferred to the fermenter and was shown to be 20 degrees, which was our desired pitching temp. So with the yeast in this beer, I was aiming for a balanced yeast profile, needing about 8.8 million cells per mil of wort, or just a single standard packet of yeast. I'm using Yeast Activator 1318 or London Ale 3. However, I am using frozen yeast that I had previously harvested, so I don't really know how much yeast I was putting in, but for you playing along at home, 8.8 million cells per mil is what I would recommend. I'm mainly using this yeast because I basically had it in the freezer at home, already frozen. But I do think this will work well. From reading the profile of this yeast, it is described as having a wonderful malt and hop profile, and I think it does sound like a good all-round strain, so should be good for this style of beer. I will be fermenting this beer at 20 degrees, which is around the midpoint for the recommended temperature range for this yeast. It will ferment at 20 degrees for 3 days before I raise it to 25 degrees for 4 days for a diacetyl rest, and then I will be kegging and bottling once fermentation is done. I had something really interesting, profound, and wise to say right now, but it seems my microphone has failed me again. In any case, I hope you're as excited as I am to see how this malty red ale turns out. If you enjoyed this video, how about watching one of these other videos where you can explore more craft beer? And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can catch more videos like these. Got any brewing questions or tips? Drop them in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. And be sure to stay tuned for the follow-up video where I will taste to see if my red ale experiment has hit the mark. Until next time, cheers.